I'm from South Lebanon, and in my short time on this planet, there's only been one enemy in my eyes, which is Israel. I've had family members killed. I've had my people in the last couple of weeks had to evacuate from the village in Lebanon. They had to go to North Lebanon. My village is getting destroyed at the moment. We're all feeling hopeless and useless, but we're all gathered here today to unite and pressure the government to do something. We can't just let this keep on happening every single day.
So part of my family in Gaza, part of my family in Lebanon, part of my family in Jordan and the West Bank. So I'm like everywhere because, because I was born in a refugee camp in Jordan, the Palestinian refugee camp. Yeah, so I came here for do my duty and taking part as an immigrant here for 30 years. Nothing in my heart changed. I am. I'm just more active, continuous our life with our, what we are belong to. So it's in blood.
Genocide, as everybody knows, is totally illegal, but unfortunately the powers that be in this country, in the USA, and in various other countries don't want to do anything about it because they are hand in glove with the government of Israel. I'm a former psychiatric nurse, and I appreciate that what's being done to Palestinian children particularly is going to leave them traumatized probably for the rest of their lives.
Wars are started by lies so they can be stopped by truth. That's at the heart of this issue. If British people and people across the world, everywhere across the world, knew the horrors of what is really happening, they would stop it. So I'm here to represent Julian, wonderful man. If we freed Julian, we stand a chance with many of these issues. And let's just contrast Julian's quote with one of his worst enemies. That is almost the foreign policy of America. To lie, to cheat, to steal. That's a quote from Pompeo. And we all know they do far, far worse.
I have a message for Israel. Every country you invade, you lose. Every city you bomb, you lose. Every bomb you drop, you lose. Every soul you take, you lose. You only have one strategy, that is mass violence. Israel has no vision for the future other than infinite and indefinite occupation, indefinite subjugation, indefinite injustice, indefinite denial, indefinite exploitation. And as long as you think that is Israel, you are above the law, you lose. Israel has assassinated almost all of our political leaders, and we are not defeated. You know why, my friends? Because we cannot be defeated. We cannot be defeated. There is no amount of bombs, that can kill people's desire to be free and live in dignity.
Now we are seeing the war that we all feared would happen across the Middle East, with the prospect of a war between Iran and Israel. Now, our government says Israel has the right to defend itself. But how can you call bombing Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and now Iran, how can you call that defending yourself? Isn't that an attack on all those other countries? And it is obscene, it's absolutely obscene that the American government is discussing with Israel, should they attack their nuclear sites? Should they attack the oil installations? Joe Biden's told them they can't attack the oil installations. You know why? Because the price of petrol will go up in the United States. Doesn't matter how many Palestinians you kill, but as soon as you threaten the oil prices, then he gets a bit nervous. That tells you exactly what the American and British government's priorities are. And we have made a difference. They said we couldn't chant from the river to the sea, and we chant it on every demonstration. They said we couldn't wave our Palestinian flags, but today there are hundreds of Palestinian flags and Lebanese flags and the flags of people who support them. And we will continue to do that. We have made a huge difference in terms of we forced the government to retreat on the arms licenses. Not enough, but it's some small victory. And now we have to push even further. And it means we need to stand up to our government. We have to say to Keir Starmer, how dare you condemn Iran for one strike when in a year you have not condemned Israel over anything.
What a magnificently beautiful crowd you are. Just look right around you. We have the Muslim, the Christian, and of course the Jewish. We have the atheist and the agnostic. We have the black and the white and the Asian. We have the gay and the straight. We have the able-bodied and the disabled. We have people here of every creed, colour and nationality, and they are standing here and they are proclaiming loudly and clearly to the people of Gaza and the people of Lebanon, you are not alone. We stand with you today and every day in the future. "365 days of bloodshed, 365 days of tens of thousands of children being killed, 365 days of children, babies not being able to get hospital treatment because their hospitals have been bombed, 365 days of hostages being kept captive. And by the way, it's the hostages' families who say that Netanyahu and the Israeli government are the ones who are blocking a ceasefire deal, nobody else. And 365 days of complete, abject failure of the international community to hold up international law. And what is the result? My friends, the result is of an Israeli government completely out of control. And yet, what is the UK government's response? Shamefully, 90% of arms export licenses are continuing. Shame on the UK government. We demand an end to arms sales, and we demand that end now. Keir Starmer stood behind his number 10 podium, indeed, and he gave a Prime Minister's address to the nation when Iranian missiles landed in Israel. And I asked the Prime Minister, where was your address to the nation when the children of Gaza are being slaughtered by the day? Prime Minister, where is your address to the nation when Lebanese children are having to get their eyes removed because of Israeli booby traps? Prime Minister, where is your address to the nation when Israel, with the arms that we supply them, are bombing hospitals, schools, refugee camps, and UN facilities? And my friends, some have said to me, the disregard of Palestinian lives and Arab lives is hypocrisy. My friends, it's far worse than that. It's downright bloody racism.
Today, Israel has extended its unrelenting aggression against my people to over 1 million others among my family who are now fleeing the same war machine, but in Lebanon. They can bomb Beirut now callously because now they have absolute impunity, and the US elections affords them extra room to do what they want as both parties trip over themselves to prove they are best friends of Israel. This week, we all saw Starmer, who's been unable to condemn Israel's genocide and its bombing of Lebanon, rushing to the podium to condemn Iran. With the words, "We stand with Israel and recognize her right to self-defense in the face of this aggression." Does Starmer speak for you? Does Starmer speak for any of us? We have been forced to learn and reconcile with so many uncomfortable truths this year. That Starmer was a human rights lawyer, but it seems only some people are human and only Europeans deserve rights. That David Lammy made his name as a supposed anti-racist, but today does the bidding for the most vile, racist apartheid state. That there is a liberal rules-based order, but it is only a stick to beat others with and to be applied selectively, hypocritical, obsolete and brutal. That the Western media is free to lie, deceive and unconditionally back a genocidal regime. And that political systems in the West, both left and right, give you choice. The illusion of choice. In reality, they work to safeguard a military-industrial complex. They are the same. Labour and the Conservatives, Democrats and Republicans. Two sides of the same rusty coin. Peace is nothing but a euphemism for genocide. And that there is a hierarchy of humanity and a myth of universal human rights. That the West supposedly detests the killing of civilians unless those civilians happen to be born in Palestine or Lebanon or hold another faith. Then they are not civilians. Muslim mothers don't feel pain. Muslim children aren't terrified of bombs. They don't cry like Westerners cry. And that they care about international law, but will sanction anyone trying to defy their settler colonial friends and their killing machines. The ICC is toothless. It took Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor, 1 week to begin proceedings against Putin, yet a year into the most documented genocide in history, he is still sitting on his hands. We have grown a lot this year. We have become aware of the intrinsic inequalities of a system that hates justice and a people that love hypocrisy. But our movement is one that will not be suppressed. The dead, the fallen, the slaughtered need us to keep going, to raise our voices. We cannot give up. We have to keep organising. We have to make sure all our efforts are in line with stopping this genocide. I want to end with a message to our sisters and brothers in the United States. You are sitting in the heart of this evil empire. You have an opportunity, especially in the swing states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia and the like, to vote down these democratic genociders. Vote for a third party. Vote for a third party and send a message to Harris. She has worked hand in glove with Biden to give diplomatic cover and military aid to this terrorist enterprise. Don't let them get away with it. Don't vote Harris on November the 5th. You have it within your gift to make the Gaza vote count. So please, for the world, use your vote wisely and don't let them rubber stamp you into vote. Don't let them scare you into rubber stamping their genocide. People told me that when I stood for Gaza, I was a dreamer, that I was wasting my time and energy. Yet I came within 500 votes of defeating a senior government minister. If you believe in yourself, you can make change, so don't lose hope. And remember, our struggle for liberation will never be silenced.
A few words about the invisible pain that is part of the suffering in Gaza. That also resonates with my own Holocaust experience, particularly with the pain of having to make life or death decisions for one's family in the dark, with no reliable information. Should we flee? Should we stay? Should we trust the promises of safe havens? What should we do with family members who are disabled and cannot flee? And this is how members of my own family died in 1944 in Transylvania. One of them was disabled, they wouldn't leave him, and they all perished in Auschwitz. What is it like to have to witness the instant destruction of a home built up over years? To have to divide the family instantly in an emergency without any certainty of a reunion ever. Even as a 7-year-old, I witnessed all this in the Holocaust of World War II. And it is deeply upsetting to see all this pain cruelly repeated in 2024 in Gaza.
All across the UK, people are showing their anger at what is going on. The 300,000 of us here today represent a very broad cross-section of the people of this country. 1 year on, and this war has continued and getting worse and worse. Just think about it. At this very moment, there are bombs falling in Gaza, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria, Iran, Iraq. The bombing has brought about the deaths of 40,000 people in Gaza, including 16,000 children. And Gaza is now a place of unbelievable levels of poverty, of hunger, of lack of medicine, and famine that has taken hold. All of it specifically designed to happen by the Israeli bombardment and the weapons they've used to bring that about. And since they started the invasion of Gaza, what hasn't been noticed by much of the media is a very large number of new settlements have been built by Israel in the West Bank. Tens of thousands of Palestinians on the West Bank have been arrested and remain in prison, many of them in administrative detention. Attacks have taken place against Palestinian villages, and there have been deaths as well on the West Bank. And then when the action started in Lebanon, the numbers of people now driven from their homes runs into the hundreds of thousands, as the Israeli army has issued orders to people to leave all of southern Lebanon to allow Israel to occupy it. And the bombardment doesn't stop there. It goes across the borders into other countries as well. And now we understand there is large bombardment taking place in Yemen. So you ask yourself this question: how is it that Israel, a country of 5 million, is able to mount such a massive attack on so many of its neighbors? And the answer is quite simply, they have endless supplies of some of the most sophisticated weapons the world has ever seen. $20 billion worth of US weapons have already been exported to Israel. This country is also complicit, not so much in the great volume of them, but in the crucial parts that are supplied for those planes that are raining bombs down on Lebanon and Gaza at the present time. And so, whilst weapons come mainly from the US, but also from Italy, also from this country, and also from Germany, it's quite significant that today the French president has called for a halt to arms supplies to Israel just an hour ago. And so one hopes that that is going to have an effect. But it's our voice and our noise globally that's going to have an effect. Because it's quite interesting that the media opinion in the USA and Britain and most of Western Europe essentially continues the argument that Israel's actions are an act of self-defense. I must say, I find it very hard to understand how killing 16,000 children in Gaza can ever be called any kind of act of self-defense. But in other parts of the world, across Asia, across Africa, across Latin America, political opinion and public opinion is very much with the Palestinian people. And I just ask you this question. Israel has been hauled before the International Court of Justice, and after very, very detailed and incredibly careful deliberation, they concluded Israel's actions amounted to genocidal acts against the Palestinian people. Netanyahu and others have been arraigned to go before the International Criminal Court for acts they've taken against the Palestinian people, and arrest warrants have been issued for them. How is it that a country that has been found wrong in the ICJ, wrong in the ICC, many times found wrong within the Geneva Convention about the authority of occupying powers, been condemned by the General Assembly of the UN and the Security Council, and then decides it will no longer allow even the UN General Secretary to visit the country, still receives weapons from so many places around the world that continue the killing. Our message to this government, our message to the Foreign Office, our message to Parliament is halt the arms supplies now before more people die. And whilst there's all kinds of very authoritative and very clever discussions take place on late night television about who said what, who did what, who's done what, and who said what over the past year, as Guterres pointed out at the time, it didn't all come from nowhere. The principal issue is the illegal occupation of Palestine and the treatment of Palestinian people, the denial of their right to be able to live in peace in the land that they were born in, and their denial of their right to be an independent state, which they deserve to be. And so my message to our government, my message to our media is, you can say what you like, but until you halt the arms supplies, until you're serious about supporting the Palestinian people, we're going to be here in Whitehall, in Birmingham, in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, in Newcastle, in Bristol, in Southampton, in every city all across this country. And we'll be there in every capital city in Europe, because the popular movement of decent, peace-loving people is they want to see an end to the conflict and an end to the war. We are at a very, very dangerous, crucial moment. Iran being bombed, where does that lead to? What other big powers does that bring in? The whole issue of the refusal to deal with the injustice of the Palestinian people is spiraling out of control into a regional conflict when goodness knows how many more will die. Our movement is a voice for peace. Our movement is a voice for justice. Our movement is a movement of unity of all peoples. And I simply say this to the Prime Minister. We are not ever going away. We will stand here as long as it takes, for as long as it takes, until the people of Palestine are able to live in freedom and in peace and in justice. Thank you very much.